Welcome, everyone. This is Activities Across Grade Levels, and today we're talking about tricking your students into learning. And we'll talk about what that word tricking means, as we get into it and discuss some of the different possibilities that are a part of that. I already have the captions on, so this particular slide is not the needed piece that it often is. But we thank you. We thank you for being part of what we're doing, that what we are recording might be useful to you in some way, that we thank you for sharing it with others. If you are watching this as a recording on the nextvista.org webinars page, then we hope you're finding plenty of content across the almost 36 episodes that Susan and I have put together to help people think about new possibilities for their students. Our next episode is on March 4th. I'll talk a little bit more about that later. So not next week, but the following week. I'm Rushton Hurley of Next Vista for Learning. We have loads of videos. It's a video library about academic topics and communities and service to others. And most of these videos come in through contests that we run that we hope you'll get involved with, that your kids might make short videos that explain something in some creative way so that some other kid somewhere else can go, oh, that's what my teacher was talking about. Then we also have our service video contest. Both of these are current. And we would welcome your getting involved. Just contact me if you are kind of in that space of, I'd like to, but I'm not sure how. Happy to help you out. A thank you goes out to all the good folks at the Krause Center for Innovation at Foothill College in Los Altos Hills, California. And then also the great people at FUSD. Why don't you tell us a little bit about them, Susan? Tell me about your district. Where are you?
So we are in Fowler, California, Central California, just outside of Fresno. And we're a small district for California standard. We have about 2,500 students, and I support 126 amazing teachers there.
Good stuff. And we're glad that they let you borrow, they let us borrow you for this particular shindig. Another thank you goes out to Richard Byrne. He and I do a webinar earlier on Thursday, every other Thursday afternoon. Or more specifically, the first and third Thursday afternoons of the month. And that's called Two EdTech Guys Take Questions and Share Cool Stuff. And it's designed to be both fun and informative as you explore possibilities of technology. So in terms of meeting you, let me introduce Susan. Folks, this is Susan. Susan, who are you?
My name is Susan Stewart. I'm an instructional technology coach from Central California. I am a former kindergarten and grade 2 teacher. I spent a lot of years supporting young learners, and now I support those amazing teachers K-12 in my district. I'm a mom of 3, and I am really glad to be here sharing with you and my friend Rushton.
And my name is Rushton. I am a former high school teacher of Japanese language, a former principal of a K-12 school, then principal of an online high school back in the day. That became valuable experience, about a year ago this time. And I run the aforementioned Next Vista for Learning. We do things like gather videos and share webinars. Now, how is this going to work today? What we're going to do is we're going to take our theme, tricking kids into learning, and we're going to talk about it first from the K2 perspective. How do you get the K2 kids going? Then grades 3 through 5, then middle school, then high school. So we hope that you'll find value in all of these, no matter what level you teach. Susan, get us started with the young learners.
Awesome. Yeah, young learners, talking about our little ones. One idea I have for tricking them to learning, of course, always starts with play. Right? When we get rolling with young learners, we know that play is very, very valuable. So on the next slide, we'll see that something like pattern blocks. I know as a teacher, I had a whole bucket of these, and my kids loved to just play with them. And the teacher of me wanted to assign standards and put academic content to it. But really, the best learning starts with, let me pour these manipulatives down on the table, obviously in a pre-coronavirus era, right? Because we know sharing manipulatives looks a little different right now, but I'd pour them down and just let them play for a while. And then after that, sometimes I might start asking some questions. So tell me about what you've created here, right? And hopefully we start by having them, use some of the academic vocabulary like hexagon and triangle. And then we just go a little further. Hey, I noticed you have some trapezoids. Wow, look how those 2 red trapezoids sit next to each other. Man, they look like another shape here. And just like those little things, tell me about, how many triangles it takes to make a hexagon. So it starts with play and just putting things together, but then we can start using that academic vocabulary to learn what we have going on here. From there, though, there's a whole other level of conceptual understanding that's being developed, because we see how we can put shapes together and take shapes apart and make new shapes out of shapes. And that's one of the standards that starts in kindergarten, continues on up, is how geometric figures fit together. So when I look at this, I have fractions, I have uh, geometry, just, the attributes. I can look at edges and corners and vertices and all of that, just starting through, let me pour a pile of manipulatives down on the table. Just starts with play. I trick them into learning, right? Because play is super powerful. Now, we do know that right now we are in an era of time where sharing manipulatives looks a little different. So we do have some options. And I have a link here that I know Rushton can do to you. Oh, look at that. Rushton already got it to you. Full of virtual math manipulatives. So if you like pattern blocks, know that there are some great resources there. It's by Julie Smith, the techie teacher, created this. It's like a bookshelf of virtual manipulatives. So if you're struggling to find ways to have your students interact and engage, that page is full of good ones, good free resources where students can interact with that math without spreading their cooties, right? Knowing also, my favorite one on that page is the Math Learning Center. I share that resource over and over again. A really great way for kids to get involved with that, getting their hands on the math, playing with it, and then we can have the vocabulary and the learning and the math come later. But play really is a good place to start. It's a good way to build that understanding and trick them into learning with us. So as we continue on, we'll start talking about slightly older elementary students. And we know that in, upper elementary, we're still talking about kids, right? We're still talking about little kids. And we know for learners of all ages that learning is social. So one way to trick them into learning is just getting them to talk. Let's just talk about things first, no matter what the concept is. Even if we're talking about those geometric figures, get the vocabulary, get the words flowing out of their mouth, and the person doing the talking, right? We've heard that is the one doing the learning. So when it comes to tricking them into learning, just get them talking about a concept, ask some questions. So oftentimes as teachers, we're so used to giving answers, right? But we know that, asking questions and just letting them come up with some ideas, and then also have our students start asking the questions is a good place to start. One thing that's really come out during our time of distance learning, remote learning, hybrid learning, whatever you have going on in your schools, is that idea of getting our students talking with each other, especially in a distance or remote environment. How do we maximize that? And how do we trick our kids into learning, together in a collaborative way? We've had so much success with breakout rooms. We're currently using Google Meet, but I know Zoom and other tools have opportunities for that. Simply putting them into a space and posing a question is a good way to trick kids into that. They think they're getting time with their friends, and it's just an opportunity for them to chat about the content. Quick little one that I saw in a third grade class this week. The teacher gave the students a Google Classroom assignment with 6 different resources about synonyms. There were a couple of YouTube videos, there were a couple online games. The teacher was like, oh man, there's so many things here about synonyms. I'm not sure which one I think is best. Why don't you guys go play those and then tell me which one you think is the one that I should put in the assignment, right? Totally tricked the kids into that highest level, evaluating the content, not just playing the games and consuming it in, but they had to go to that next level. Like, what about this particular resource helped me learn synonyms so well? Totally tricked them into not just thinking about what is a synonym, but why is this particular song a good way to teach synonyms? And man, what is it about this game, this online game? And one of my favorite games online, of course, we could have the traditional use of synonyms. Like I'm picturing a worksheet where there's like 2 lines of words and you have to like draw lines to match them together. But in this example, that's like this carnival game, and the synonyms are coming across the screen, and the kids have to throw the ball, and if they get the right answer, it goes bling, 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 bling. Like, we love that immediate feedback, that fun. But the fact that they have to stop and like think about their thinking, why do I love this so much? What about this game is the reason that I'm picking this resource? You're like, oh, it tells me right away if I get it right or wrong. That's what we really want to go for. So by giving them a lot of those, different kinds of resources, maybe even letting them talk to their peers. So they had to come to a consensus in their group of four about which synonym resource was the best. Man, who did all the learning there? The kids. Who did all the talking there? The kids. Teacher did have to do some prep work on the front end to like kind of, compile those resources. But man, getting them talking, getting them, working at that higher level, absolutely. Super similar example I'll talk about that I saw recently, tricking kids into getting better at what they do, had to do with peer editing. So the teacher introduced a rubric, and it really helped these fourth graders understand the three areas that they were evaluating for. They were talking about the content, right? The topic. They're talking about the grammar, the conventions, so things like that. And so she broke down the rubric for them and talked about what a rubric looks like even just helping a young learner understand a rubric. But then they had to start looking at each other's work using those criterion, teaching the students how to understand a rubric, but then giving them that ability to look at each other's work. They became like little spies. They were detectives looking for, that's a 3. Oh, that's a 2. Oh, I recognize that. And the second they start doing that, they realize, now when I'm working on my own work, right, hopefully we get that transfer. So I don't want to get a 2 on this. I'm aiming for 4. So they start, cleaning up their own work before it even reaches that peer evaluation phase. But just giving them the vocabulary and opportunity to, go hunt through their peers' work using that rubric tricks them into becoming better writers themselves.
All right, let's give the middle school folks a bit of a look as well. So what kinds of things can we do to trick them into learning? Well, I would stay with the idea that play, and now we just kind of call it fun by the time they get up into secondary, same thing, is an opportunity to take things to another level. Now, let's figure out what we're talking about there. The reason I have a fly swatter on the screen is because when I was teaching Japanese, one of the things that we had to do was to identify particular character combinations and things like this. And so I'd put a bunch of them on an overhead back in the day, right? A bunch of them on an overhead, and I'd put 2 kids on either side of the screen, the physical drop down screen, and they would each have a fly swatter, and then I'd call out one of them, and first one to swat it, we'd all go yay, right? And we didn't bother too much with score and things like that, but just the idea of being able to be like, boom, that's it, boom, that's it, boom, that's it, was something that they responded to real well. Now, if all you're doing is making a competition out of it, you're minimizing the chance for the learning that can be part of it. And so there is the fun of just being like, there it is, trying to spot it before the 2 people might be up there, might be working on it. But with each one, I could ask a little bit about the word, just a question or 2, and then so we could get right back to it. So I wasn't taking like huge amounts of time away from this fun thing I set up, but I would add just bits and bobs as I go as a way of getting them to see it at a time when they're paying maybe that extra measure of attention than they might be if I were doing something a little bit more didactic. So also when we think about tricking kids into learning, let's talk about just kind of tricks in general. If you think about skateboarding and the tricks, people master tricks, those little things that allow them to be able to say, hey, that's something I can do. Now, as you think about learning, there are a number of places in our curriculum where this comes up pretty easily. So math and numeracy skills are certainly one of those. If I ask a group of kids, quick, what's 17 times 99, right? There might be a lot of kids who are like, I don't know, I'd have to work that out on paper, and trying to get them into just a math trick of, well, 17 times 10, can you do that in your head? Yeah, that's 170, you just put a 0 on. So you can do 17 times 100, right? Yeah, that's 1700. Good, okay. Can you subtract 17 from 1700? Because that's just 1 from 100 to 99. We're just, and then, okay, it's 17, 100 minus 1683. A lot of kids, if they practice something like that, they'll get it. But they have to see that they can do it before they start practicing such that they get good at it. And so a lot of what we want to do to build confidence, because so much about learning comes down to confidence in learning, is giving them a space where they can say, that is something I can do, and I'll give it a shot. Now you can see this in some other spots as well. In language, sometimes there are particular things that if you remember, you can remember how something works. With minutes in Japanese, there are some that have one pronunciation and others that have another. And so going through the first numbers, 2, 5, 7, and 9 were a little different. I used to start class with, all right, everybody, 2, 5, 7, and 9. And we would just do that a couple of times. And that's just a way for it to stick. So finding ways to have like little moments be something that you didn't explain. It's all of this abstraction. You just have them experience something in order for them to have it settle in where it can become part of their confidence in their learning. I'd also like to say that sometimes we just don't, we don't have enough fun with kids developing particular skills as they go. So imagine the different things you teach in your curriculum, and maybe you can say, okay, well, once you know this, see, that's this color belt and this color belt and this color belt, and reserve the black belt, not for the kind of lower level things on Bloom's taxonomy, just the recall, but the connections, the ability to say, yeah, like there's this, and it has this to do with this, and I think it's interesting for this reason, and here's what I created as a way of showing that. All right, boom, you passed your belt test and you're a black belt now, and and whatever it may be, physiology. But that whole idea that particular topics can yield belts, and that's just something that you can enjoy as you go, is something we don't take enough of an opportunity to do, in my humble opinion. Now, all of these ideas are things you can transfer over to high school, but let's look at another couple of things that are a part of how the high schoolers work as well. So one thing that we do way too much of is that we teach in the same way over and over again. We are in a particular place, standing in a particular room, talking in a particular tone of voice, and in doing it the same way again and again and again, we're losing an opportunity to get students to be like, wait, something's a little different. And sometimes that can be like really kind of obvious. Like if you take a group of kids outside, obviously at the moment that's probably not the thing. But even if you are joining your Zoom or your Meet call from a different place, and you just change the setting, that's enough for some students to be like, huh. Now that may not last a long time, but you've got a moment, and say what you need to say. Similarly, when we start thinking about adding some variety to what we do, there's more than just like, oh, okay, what's behind me? There's, what do I sound like? Or more to the point, what does the teacher sound like? Susan talked a minute ago about the whole idea of the person talking is doing the learning, right? And if you give students the chance to be the one to explain things, then that adds a variety to what's happening in your learning experience that is interesting. And you might find that there are a lot of students who are like, no, I'm nervous to do that. Well, sure, it's nerve-wracking to like speak in front of a big group or anything like that. But you can say, all right, well, let's just record you. I mean, this is stuff you can do in Zoom quite easily, as we know, meta happening right now. And getting a kid, to get to a point where they say, yeah, I nailed it. I got it right. Let's use that one. And then use the video of the student explaining something as a way to just change things up just a little bit, so that the kids are like, hey, wait, you want them to have those moments where they're not kind of moving down into second gear, first gear, neutral, just because they're used to what you do. So a certain amount of variety and shift in what you do can be helpful in that regard as well. And then for the last one, I wanted to add a little bit about our kids who are lacking kind of that extra level of confidence. And I'm thinking about the kids who need the extra help, and you're doing like one-to-one review with them. And so you're helping them try to catch up. And so much of what it means to be working with you in their mind is, I need to catch up. So you're reviewing things with them. If you are working with a student and in doing that, you're getting them caught up, give them some preview along with the review. Right? Give them the chance to kind of see something that's on the way. Have them kind of think through some of those pieces, so that when you get to that as part of the class, they have had a chance to encounter it, not for the first time, not where they're trying to process it like, totally new, but instead as someone who's had a bit of an introduction. And that is a really nice little trick for getting a student to start saying, oh, okay, I think I'm getting this. Yeah, because one of the huge tricks that would give any kid a major advantage in any learning situation at any level is something that 99.99% of students do not do. And that is look ahead, right? If the teacher's going to start unit 4 tomorrow and you're part of that 0.01%, whatever it is, that knows this trick, you look at unit 4 and you start looking into what are we going to cover, what are that's talking about, what's there, and just that added exposure to the material, even if you don't understand it right away, can be something that allows you to hear things at a next level when the teacher is explaining it. So for that kid who needs the review, maybe giving them the preview as a way of helping them develop more and more confidence about the content might be a really good way to trick some learning into a nice gear with that. Susan, would you say that these are the kind of things we might be able to do with younger kiddos as well?
Oh, absolutely. Especially that idea of the preview and the review, that right there, I would say comes true when, wanting to differentiate in any way. Our young learners, we know that as we introduce new concepts, sometimes kids need the engagement spark to keep going, right? They need something to move forward. And so whether it is the ones who need the engagement because they're just distracted because they're 5, right? Or maybe they need that extra engagement, or because they're struggling academically and they need to review. But like you said, looking ahead is something we can all benefit from. So I would say our young learners would have a great time with that too, because it gives them that thing to connect to. We know that so much of a learning, is when the connections are made. And so if you kind of warm my brain up for it ahead of time, and then when it comes time, right? My friend George tells stories sometimes about your brain needing to hear something 3 times and before it actually like sinks in. And so that idea that, maybe they just got that little glimmer spark ahead of time, so that when it starts coming around the next time, it's, we might call it front loading, right? But it really does give our students that opportunity to grab on in whichever way, is going to be most useful for them.
You can even take this to another level within that. If you know that a kid needs a confidence booster that has to do with the interaction with the other students in the room, by giving a bit of a preview and then checking in, like a day or 2 ahead of time, just a couple of times, say, do you remember what this was? Oh yeah, it was this. It's like, all right, good. And then you get to a point where you're explaining something in class and that kid knows the answer before anyone else has a chance to really figure it out. You might, has anybody heard of this before, by the way? Do you know what this connects to? And that kid might be like, oh my God, I know, right?
Yeah.
Hey, kiddo, do you know what's this? Fantastic. Let's keep going. And that there are people in the room like, how did they, and those kinds of moments can be really interpersonally valuable to our kids who struggle with confidence.
Absolutely. And you say that, the power of that moment, right? It might be a little manufactured, right? You totally made that up, but what a great thing to do for that student. And then also for the other students, when it comes from one of them, right? Necessarily doesn't always come from you. It came from their peer. They hear it in a different way.
Yeah, manufacturing kind of the moments that they need really is what tricking students into learning is all about. I used to tell my students, hey, so you may have a point this year where a lot of things are not going well, and your parents are really on you about something. If you come to me and you say, hey, could you call my parents and tell them something good I've done? You let me know. I can do it. Make sure you're doing something good in the class so I'll have something to point to, but I can do it. Now, of course, the trick there is that not so much you're tricking the parent into thinking the kid's just fine, but you're doing something that we all should, which is add that bit of positive, right? And connecting with the parent in a way that allows us to be in a space of, tell me more about, what's going on in her life, in his life, and so that you can be all the better prepared to know what it is that kiddo will need.
I
All right.
Oh,
Keep going.
oh, I would say we're just, just to wrap up that idea of manufactured moments. One of my favorite books last year was actually called The Power of Moments, and it totally dove into that idea. Here we are talking about tricking kids, right? And manufacturing these little learning opportunities. But that book really altered my just like thinking in so many ways, just as a coach talking to teachers, as a teacher thinking about students, as a parent, my children, those moments that we trick them, right, into tripping into their own learning. Oh, wow, right? Great book, Power of Moments. It's Chip and Dan Heath, but kind of wraps around this idea of like kind of tricking people, but not necessarily. It's creating that aha moment, but intentionally, right?
Absolutely. If you would find that on Amazon, let's get the link in the chat, and then we'll get it into the links page, which those of you who registered for this, you will get an email from me after we've posted this video that says, here's the recorded video, and here are the slides, and here's the links page, and we'll get that in there as well. So I hope that that as you think about some of these different pieces, you're kind of in that spot of like, maybe it brings forth a question like this or like that. Stick around. Once we finish the recording, we'll keep talking to the folks that are here. And if you got questions, we're happy to answer them. All right. Don't always get, loads of questions, but that's not the point. If your question's important to you, go ahead and toss it out. We can promise you we'll give it a shot. Now, we can't promise a great answer, but we'll try. And that's part of how it works. So the kind of interaction that we have with each other is really what we do to make sure that we are re-energizing ourselves for the very difficult work that we have. Teaching is emotionally, physically, spiritually, psychologically exhausting, especially now. And so these moments that we have where we talk to each other about ideas, we say, hey, I tried this, it worked out really well. Hey, here's an idea. Those moments can be really, really good for being there when that kid needs you to be able to do something a little bit different. Take care of yourself. So my little nonprofit, Next Vista for Learning, lots and lots of videos with kids' insights on learning this or learning that. We have videos about community and service, and videos for English language learners, and videos with advice for teens and careers. And we hope that you'll give that a look. And if you need any help finding the ones you want, you just let me know. I have a blog at Inspiring Improvement, rushtonh.com, rushtonh.com. And I hope that the kinds of things that I share there might be of value to you. I also have written some books. You're welcome to give these a look and let me know if there's anything in them that you want to discuss with me or with your colleagues. You can always say, hey, can you connect with our grade level group is doing a book study with one of your books. Could you connect and talk to us? Absolutely. What does that cost? Nothing. You bought some books. That's fine, right? Oh, you're nice. Happy to help. So by all means, feel free to do that. Like I said, we've got the 2 EdTech guys take questions and share cool stuff coming up again on March 4th. That's something Richard and I love to do and share ideas with, and we have a lot of fun. And I think that if you've never seen one of those, you should check it out and see if you agree. So our next webinars, 2 weeks from today, and they include, what is it that they include, he said, with that question mark that's now in front of him, an astronomy focus. So we're excited about that. So with that, Susan, how do people stay in touch with you if they're curious about some of the things that you have said or shared?
Oh, absolutely. I am on the internet at Tech Coach Susan. I'm Susan and I'm a tech coach, and you can find me on Twitter there. Also, you can follow things I share under the hashtag K2Can2. And Rushton, one of these days I'm going to remember to add, I'm also K2Can2@gmail.com. So that's there you go.
Awesome.
K2Can2, talking about empowering those young learners and celebrating what they can do. That's where you can find me on the internet.
Very cool. So you can find me via nextvista.org. There's a contact us at the top of the page, and you're welcome to reach out with questions about videos that you might want to find for your students that might be useful in your teaching, or contest stuff that we do, anything along those lines. I would be very happy to talk to you. So with that, we'll finish off the recording, but stick around to talk to folks about the different ideas we've shared. And we hope that wherever you are, hopefully it is getting maybe a little warmer than it's been. I know that folks in Texas got it real rough at the moment. Hang in there, but do what you can for those in need, because there's a lot of need out there at the moment. We look forward to seeing you in 2 weeks. Take care.